Hello, I'm here to answer questions about the midterm exam. So I did receive a few questions from a student, so I will start with those. I'm used to using voice typing, so I was telling Google Documents to put a comma in there. So anyway, we'll start with those questions. I've got a document up, so I'll begin sharing my screen, and then we can address some of those questions. After answering some of those questions, I can go to one of the surveys we never looked over together as a class. I think it was during week 6 when we talked about subject headings and controlled vocabulary. So we'll go over answers to those quiz questions, those survey questions, and perhaps we can even go over the Kahoot together. I could do the Kahoot and discuss the answers along the way. And realize that if this is going too slow, if I'm talking too slowly, you can always change the YouTube settings so that you have the playback at 1.25 or 1.5 or twice the speed, whatever you want to do. But I'll start sharing the screen and we'll go from there. Okay, so we've got this document here, and maybe I'll make it a bit larger. So one question was, how would you define methodology? When we're talking about scholarly journal articles, the methodology section is the part that describes how the study or experiment was conducted. It might explain the conditions under which chemicals were looked at, or it could explain how a questionnaire was developed, or explain how the researchers chose one test for participants to take rather than another. In chapter 4 of our 100% information literacy success reading assignment, it talks about the methods section of a journal article. So usually the methods section comes after the introduction and after the literature review. So here, quote, after the context and need for the study have been discussed, which is, from the introduction and the literature review. In the introduction and the highlights from relevant previous studies have been summarized, the author explains in detail how the current study was conducted. Such research methods contribute to the validity and reliability of the study. In addition, if another researcher wants to recreate the study, he or she could follow the methods described in the article. The description of the methods also allows the article's reviewers to determine if the study was conducted in a logical manner and if sound research standards and procedures were followed. If a tool such as a questionnaire was used, it should be included as an exhibit at the end of the article. It is not included. If it is not included, readers should be able to contact the authors to gain access to the tool that was used. And also in the William Bagke book, in section 2.1.3, it says, while there are some common elements, every discipline has a special set of prescribed procedures for doing research. Naturally, a chemist might use a microscope, or a biologist might use microscopes to look at the details of a chemical, right, under a microscope. An astronomer would look in a telescope, right, to see the stars. Those are methods I suppose they would use when they're doing their studies. Also, a geologist would go and collect rock samples possibly, while a biologist could go into the field, out into nature and gather water samples, or maybe they go out and gather leaves, and that's kind of like a botanist, I guess. But anyway, you get the idea. There are different methods. A historian, they would go maybe to archives, or they could go visit descendants of a famous person, and those descendants might have some of the papers, the books, the letters of that famous person for the researcher to look at. Question 2, can you discuss traditional information and academic information? Yeah, absolutely. In the research strategy book, 1.1, that's where it talks about the traditional societies, the traditional information. So if you remember, he gave an example of a time when he went to Africa. And while he was in Africa, I think it was West Africa, people there kept saying, you know, they'd point to a plant and say, that's edible or that's not edible, right? And so it happened so many times. He asked the people, why do you feel it's important to tell me which plants are edible and which ones are poisonous or which ones are not edible? And that's when they said, you know, they had a war, and to escape the violence, people went into the jungle, and they'd forgotten which plants they could eat, right? Whereas their ancestors from generation to generation had told each other and passed it down to their children, you know, you can eat this plant, you can't eat this plant, don't eat that berry, right? So that traditional knowledge, that traditional information gets passed down in those traditional societies. And so academic information, let me see, is that on the midterm? Let me see if this is one that I'm updating. Academic information. Yeah, academic information. So this type of information is usually shared in academic journals. It's something that, you know, researchers, they go to school to learn how to do the best research. That's the methodology part. They learn how to create questionnaires, or they learn how to conduct experiments out in the field or in a laboratory. So it's kind of more formalized, and academic information, typically they cite sources and they review each other's work to help increase the accuracy of that information. So I think that's kind of a difference between those two. One thing that is useful to remember, I think in the William Bagke book, he said that there are certain societal things that happen with the traditional knowledge. The traditional knowledge could rely on one person, and so that person has to have a good memory, which could impact, you know, if their memory becomes faulty, then some of that information might not get passed down very well to the next person. And so there are kind of different hierarchies. In the traditional society, they typically are less inclined to do research. And they rely on those experts a little bit more. So what is the difference between informational research and genuine research? Okay, so in the study guide, let's take a quick look here. We've got genuine research here, and we've got informational research. If you remember at the beginning of the William Bagke book, I think it was in the preface, he says that this book would talk about informational research, which is the kind that you can find in articles, in books, in magazines, in newspapers. That's the informational part, right? You go and somebody's already conducted an experiment and you want to go read what their findings were, versus the other kind of research, which is research conducted in a laboratory, or humanities researcher that goes to the archives and looks at different things. And that's kind of informational too, but it's more historical. And they could look at other things like artifacts and such, right? Genuine research. In the William Bagke book, I believe it's in chapter 3. Give me a second to take a look at that. Maybe I can pause. I don't know if I can pause the recording, but anyway, I think in chapter 3, it says the key to genuine research is to have a good question that requires analysis and that seeks to solve a problem. If you give me a minute, I can probably find that and read from it. I've got it marked with a key next to in the margins. So genuine research. Okay, yeah. So on page 49 in the 2020 or 21 version, this is the 2021 edition of the Research Strategies book. William Bagke says, the key to genuine research is a good question that addresses a problem calling for analysis. So I think that's an important thing. So I've got that noted in there. So if you remember, this was the section where he's talking about going deep or being shallow, right? There's another paragraph down on page 49. And it's, if you put a gallon of water in a bathroom sink versus in the bathtub, the gallon of water in the bathtub is going to be a lot shallower than the gallon of water in the sink, right? The bathroom sink. So we want to go for depth when we do research in college, especially. All right, so I think I've answered these questions: informational research and genuine research. And then this last one is, what is an assigned subject search? So that's a really good question. An assigned subject search is using the subject headings. So when I go to the library, I can go to the catalog, I can go straight there, and I can do a subject search. I'm just going to go straight in. And if you go to subject, then you can do an assigned subject or a subject search. So I can just put in information literacy and see if there are any books with that subject heading. And you can see that there's one, Transforming Information Literacy Instruction, Threshold Concepts in Theory and Practice. Looks like a book I should read. And you can see that they do have the assigned subjects here. So if you remember from the reading and from class, we talked about controlled vocabularies. And so a controlled vocabulary is the idea that there's a master list of subjects. And when somebody gets a book and is cataloging it for the first time, they need to look at that master list and choose the most appropriate, the most relevant subject heading from that list. They can't choose a new or different subject heading that they like better, right? So it's assigned because this, if I were to look at this book and if I were to catalog it, and if I determined this book is about information literacy, then I would give it information literacy as a subject heading. So I would assign it that subject heading, right? So in that way, it's an assigned subject heading, and it's also pulled from that controlled vocabulary list that the catalogers have agreed upon, the master people like at the Library of Congress, who they're the ones that control the subject headings, the Library of Congress subject headings, right? So I think that answers that question. So when in the test, it might talk about controlled vocabulary and assigned subjects or subjects, assigned subject headings. It's kind of talking about the same idea that you don't get to choose the subjects. You get you have to figure out what they are and use those to find them. I think there are questions on the test that talk about precision and a recall, maybe. So an assigned subject heading, right? A subject heading search would have higher precision if that subject matches your research interest. So if I click on information literacy, this subject heading, you can see there are 29 results here. And if I look at this list of 29 results, I can see these articles are probably the best ones that we need to use. Here's 100% information literacy. So we use chapter 4 from this book. This is a newer edition. So it's 2017 is the newer edition, right? But you can look through these, and these are all information literacy titles. And some of these, I wonder if I've got checked out. They all say that they're available, though, it looks like. So except for this one here. So maybe somebody else has that checked out, which would have been smart. If you as a student checked out that chapter, then you could have just read it without having to read it in the PDF form. Okay, so that answered some of those main questions. Let me go to our Moodle course and let me just see if anybody else has posted to the forum. I don't think anybody else has, so. Oh, looks like we've got somebody posted just maybe just barely. Oh, okay, just since I was on my lunch break. Great, I will copy and paste these and I can answer them in on the document. Okay. Okay, so questions. Questions I have for the midterm, how you define folksonomy. Oh, great question. This is also addressed in the chapter where I think it might be chapter 5. I might need to look at that. Yes, I think it's chapter 5 where it talks about the subject headings and controlled vocabulary. And if I can find the page, I can give you a more precise and accurate information. Yes, page 101. I can read this and we can put the answer here on the page and you can see when I use the voice typing how it works. Looks like I turned the voice typing on too soon. Okay. So several years ago, as people started sharing things on the World Wide Web, such as photos, favorite bookmarks, etc., folksonomies began to develop, period. A folksonomy is simply a user-created method of labeling items, tagging, so that you or anyone else in your circle of friends or colleagues can use these labels to find your items, period. Okay, we'll put quotation marks around this, and then I'll put a page 101, page 102. It bleeds onto the different pages. So, and we'll do an in-text citation. We'll do back key, 2021 page. We'll do 2 P's for page 101 through 102. So let me see, we'll correct the spelling here. Folksonomy. Okay. So I took some liberties here with different things here. So this is supposed to be parentheses. And this is, okay. I think I'm getting distracted with the tiny details here, but I have a tendency to do that. So basically a folksonomy is like, let me see if I can go to Twitter. I don't know if it will let me go there. But so if I go to Twitter, it's got lots of different things here. If I go to Explore, I can put in hashtags, right? So hashtag, oh, we do have one, Idaho State mini golf. We had an activity where we did some mini golf and it doesn't show any results actually. But what if we did Idaho State University? So a folksonomy is not controlled. And so anybody can tag their photos or their Twitter, their tweet with these hashtags, right? And so without that authority control, if you wanted to find all the tweets on Twitter that talked about Idaho State University, you might have to look at ISU, Idaho State University, or different, maybe even Idaho State. I think our university likes us to use the hashtag Idaho State University, but maybe there are people that don't, right? And so the problem with the folksonomy is that you have to do multiple searches to find all the results that are still relevant, whereas subject headings are more, they're controlled, right? And so if you find a book and it's about Idaho State University, and that's the agreed assigned subject heading, that's what you have to use. So a folksonomy can be different. And it's created by people who just decide that's the tag they're going to do, right? So there's no really control, right? So yeah. So the problem with the folksonomy is that there's no consistency sometimes, right? And things change. And I think that's described and mentioned here. If you go to flickr.com, FLICKR.com, you can see how people that post pictures on the internet, let's see, flickr.com, you can search for photos, like photos about Idaho, and these folksonomies, right? Some people have tagged their photos with Idaho as I think. So when you look down here, have they tagged their photos? It just says Arco, Idaho. But I guess not every user uses the tags, but you can add tags to help increase the findability of your source. But it's kind of a fun thing too, because if somebody's using a unique tag or descriptor, and that's one that you use, then you could find some really amazing things or photos, right? So this looks like a typical Idaho picture. That's Idaho. It looks, I like it. I like Idaho. Anyway, it's not the most beautiful, but anyway, this picture anyway. So let's get back to business here. What is the difference between a record and an article? Okay. Fascinating question. Okay, let's go back to this catalog, right? So in the catalog, most of the records you find will be book records, they'll tell you about books, or they might tell you about maps or other items that we have on the physical library, or even the ebooks, right? So this is a record about one item. It's about a book, right? If I were to go to OneSearch, and if I were to put in information literacy here, I could find records about articles and books and even government information, government documents. So here we've got books a lot at the top, but if oh wow, lots of books. They're highlighted. Maybe I need to limit to just scholarly articles. Oh, excuse me. So in the databases, you can have records about articles, you can have records about books, right? And so each record has these, the metadata, which are the descriptive labels. So authors, here are the names of the authors. It doesn't say title, but this is the title of the article. It tells you all the other things, right? So a record has metadata, and you can search on those fields. So each of these labels is a field. So you've got an author field and you've got a source field, right? So I think we're testing you on these things. Do you know what a field is? A field is a part of a record, and it gives you information about one type of thing. So for the source, this is the journal title, and it's got the date and the pages. And in this section, it would also talk about volume and issue numbers too. So yeah, this is one field. And then these are the other fields, right? And the fields have descriptive labels, which we also call metadata. So this is information about the information. Metadata is that. It's information about information. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I'm forgetting to tell you some things, but I think we've talked about a lot of these things. And also, if I go to, I don't know if it's week 6 or week 5, we've got the this known item versus concept searching and vocabulary terms. This is also a good handout to review for the test, because I think we are testing on some of the concepts here. And I think I need to add things like record and field on this. Yeah, so there can be many fields on a record, because each field describes a particular thing about the item, right? And each record describes one item. So if you've got one article, that one article could have multiple authors, it could have one title, and it could have one journal title, so the source, right? It could have one abstract, but each of those items that describe that article, like the subject headings, would have their own label, descriptive label, which is the metadata. And each of those types of information about that one item is described in each individual field. So yeah, many fields on one record. So here you can see, maybe I can make it larger. I don't know if you can see that very well, but recall is all about how many results you get. So if you get high recall, you conduct a search, right? If I do a search for information literacy, you can see I got 1,027,000 results. If I do a subject search, I think I have to go to advanced search here. If I go to it, this search is within the field, so it's not a true subject search, but information literacy has to be found in the subject terms. So instead of 1 million results, this should cut my results down quite a bit. So we've got 106 million, no, not million, 106,000. So that's like 1/10 of the results of just doing a regular keyword search. So when we look at this, where is it? A keyword search has high recall. It gives us lots of results, but it could give us a low precision, right? So precision is all about how many of those results are relevant. And if a high percentage of those results are relevant, then we have a more precise search. So keyword searches typically have high recall but low precision. And subject searches often have the opposite, the inverse. They have high precision but low recall. Okay, so those are important things to remember. This is also on this, some of these terms might be in the midterm exam. I need to look at it still before tomorrow. But hybrid tool is a tool that includes facts and finding aids. So encyclopedias, handbooks, textbooks, guidebooks, those types of things are called hybrid tools because they include facts, you know, the articles. And then at the end of the articles, they have maybe a list of reading or a list of references where they found the information and so forth, right? We've talked about scope note in class. It's a description of a subject heading, right? So when we go into the catalog, we'll have to go into the catalog here. If we go to information literacy, let's see if there's a scope note. There might be, there might not be. And so this just gives us all the, it doesn't really give us a scope note, but a scope note might say, enter books with this subject heading that talk about information literacy, but they probably would use the definition of information literacy or something like that, right? So that's what the scope note is. It describes what kinds of books or articles would you find or should be given this subject heading. Okay, let's go back to our midterm. What is the difference between a record and an article? I think I've talked about that. So an article, well, maybe I didn't finish this question. So the record, I talked about that. What is a record, right? But what is an article? An article is typically, it could be chapter length or smaller. And it's typically published in a journal or a newspaper or a magazine. So it's part of something larger. A book is a standalone thing, right? You publish a book and it has chapters. Well, you publish an issue of the journal, and inside that issue, you'll find a few articles or many articles. And so an article usually has more currency if it's because they're published in publications that don't take as long to publish as a book, right? So what is the difference between a record and an article? Well, a record is part of a database, whereas an article is part of a newspaper or a journal or a magazine, right? So here, these are articles. They're found in a database, right? And this is an article record, right? If I open this up, this is an article record. So you could have a book record or an article record inside a database, but you can't really find a record inside of an article. Not this type of record anyway. You might have different kinds of records, I suppose. You know, if you're thinking of records as far as facts and stuff, but in our class, when we're talking about records, we're talking about information about a book, an article. It could even be a musical score or a map or something like that, right? Information about an item. It's not the item itself, but it tells us about the item. And often it tells us how to find it. Fortunately, in these databases, we get the full text, which is pretty cool. It's amazing. Going back, I think I answered that question. So let's take a look. What is the process for thesaurus searching? What is the process for thesaurus searching? This is something that I plan on talking about in a week or two. Let me see if I have this in the what is the process for thesaurus searching? Okay. Well, I can talk about it briefly. A thesaurus search. Well, I guess I wonder if this student, if you're asking about, thinking about synonyms, you can use a thesaurus to look up synonyms for keywords, or you can use the databases. I'd like to use a different database that's a little more precise. Actually, if I go to the health sciences page, there's a Synon complete link here. So one search searches many databases, but each database has its own thesaurus. So if you look up here, it says Synon subject headings. In other databases, maybe like in ERIC, which is an education database, they might call this the thesaurus. So you can browse the thesaurus to find subject headings or assigned subjects, right? So if I put in here depression, because this is like a health science database, you can see these are accepted subject headings: depression, depression postpartum, depression reactive, bipolar disorder. If I click on this bipolar, it allows me to select subject headings or subheadings. So for the bipolar, if you're interested in diagnosis, you could just select that box. Maybe you're more interested in the etiology or the immunology or the history or nursing. You could select all of these that you want. If you're interested in the therapy, right, for bipolar therapy, do they have treatment? I don't know if they have treatment. I don't know. Maybe prognosis could be useful. I'm not a health science, but yeah, there's this. Do you see when I hover over it? It says scope note prognosis. So it says scope note, prospect of survival and recovery from a disease as anticipated from the usual course of that disease or indicated by special features of a particular case. So prognosis, yeah, your chances of survival. How interesting. I should know that, but I'm not a health science professor. Okay, so, once you selected all that you want, you could do drug therapy or diet therapy. Those are other parts of therapy. Maybe you're interested in the familial and genetics. So here you can see, you can explode these. I need to explore what that means myself a little bit more. But you can search the database, and it searches the database for those subject headings for bipolar disorder with the subheadings of nurses, therapy, prognosis, diet therapy. What's this DH? I think it was maybe medication or something. FG was family and genetics or something. So you can see this is going to be more precise. If I did a search, this again, this is to speak to the, we have 5,610 results. So it's a more precise search. When we do just a keyword search, you see that we get 16,000 results, right? So more of these, they'll probably won't be exactly relevant to what you want to find, but when you did the subject search, you should have had a higher precision. The results should have been better, and so forth. So let me see. We're going to the process for thesaurus searching. So that is the process for thesaurus searching. Okay, I said at the beginning that I could. Do I have the? No, I don't have that open. Okay. We'll see if anyone else has posted to week 8 and extra credit research log. Yeah, you'll get extra credit points if you post. So we just have the 2 students that posted so far. If I go back to week 7, no, I think that was week 6. Let me go to week 6. And if I go to keyword searching survey, here's the subject and keyword searching survey. Submitted answers and questions. Okay, so some students answered this, so I can show the responses and we can take a look. Let's look at the analysis part here. Which of the following types of searches will increase your precision or yield a higher percentage of relevant results? Yes, this D is correct. If you do a controlled vocabulary search, which is basically the same thing as an assigned subject search, then you'll have higher precision. You'll have a higher percentage of relevant results, right? Here's, you'll have a smaller recall, meaning you'll have fewer results, but those results, more of them should be relevant. Okay, according to William Bagkey, controlled vocabularies, this one says, seek to tell what the data is actually about, regardless of the words used in the title. It helps the researcher find nearly everything in the database on the topic. Let's see, I can't see the questions, so let's see if I can look at the questions. Oh, this is better here. It requires the researchers to use the assigned descriptors or subjects within the system, and we'll have many words and subject headings that represent the same thing. So no, it was more likely to describe a like a hashtag or a folksonomy term, right? So the correct answer is A, B, and C. Okay, so which of the following will often increase your number of results in a library catalog or journal article database search? The OR operator or connector, a truncation code, the AND operator, the NOT operator, both A and B. So let's see what everybody said, those 6 students that took the survey. Oh, I need to go to analysis. So the correct answer is both A and B. So we've got 3 students that answered that correctly. And we've got 2 students that answered this one. The OR, that's correct. You know, the OR will help you find more results when you connect keywords with OR. But the asterisk also will increase the number of results you get, typically, maybe not every single time. Let's see if we can read this one. Which of the following is not an example? Oh, so the opposite is true, right? And not will give you fewer results because the not excludes, and the and, it requires that you find both terms, which will give you fewer results because both those terms have to be in the record somewhere, in the title and the abstract and the subject headings and so forth. Okay, which of the following is not an example of concept searching? So what does this one say? Searching for a book or title or article with the title or author's name. That is the correct answer. Let's take a look at the questions. Searching for phrases and words you think best represent the research question. That would be a keyword search. Searching with assigned subject descriptors or subject headings. So B, C, and D are all concept searching, whereas this one is called a known item search, and it is not a concept search. You would search by author or title for a book or an article. Which of the following Boolean, truncation, proximity, and wildcard operators are used in the search statement? So here we've got a proximity operator. Here we've got a truncation code, which is the asterisk. We have another proximity operator, another truncation code. We have or, right? So, oh, and then I skipped and. We have and. So we have and, or, truncation code, and proximity operator. We do not have wildcard codes in this one here. Okay, so let's see how many people got that one right. Let's see. It looks like most everybody got that one right. And, or, truncation, code, and proximity. Those and, or, truncation. Yeah, those 4 things. Which of the following types of searches are more likely to return many results, but may have a lower percentage of relevant results? So a keyword search. Let's see. Oh, there's a typo. I should have an S here. So more likely to return many results, but have a lower percentage of relevant results. So the correct answer is keyword search. These assigned subject and controlled vocabulary, they would have a higher percentage of relevant results again, but they'd have a smaller number of results. Okay, so that's that. I don't know if we have time for the Kahoot, but let me see. Maybe we do. It could be fun to do that just for fun. So I think I passed the Kahoot link. Nope. I need to go to week 8. Week 8. And here's the Kahoot midterm review. Let's see if I can play this and we can review some more questions. Play as a guest. We'll do that. All right. We'll try and be fast if we can. Continue as a guest. I think that's what I want to do. Let's do classic mode. And I'll have to use my cell phone, so you can see what's going on. So if you've never used Kahoot, the thing is that you have to go to the website, to kahoot.it. And then you have to put in the pin, the game pin. So let me enter that. I'll do 5942901. All right. Well, if you're still watching this video, congratulations. This might not be the most exciting video you've ever watched in your life, but hopefully it does help you get ready for the midterm exam. Okay, so I'll just say Professor J. If other people were playing with us, we could compete with them for the fastest times and the most points, but we'll start this. So midterm LLIB. I don't think I shared the audio, so you can't see that. What classification system does the ISU library use to organize books and other materials? Correct answer is yellow, Library of Congress classification system. The public libraries use the Dewey Decimal System. There is such a thing as the National Library of Medicine, but I don't think they have a classification system. So let's see, how do I'm on the podium. Where does it let me? Oh, here's the next. My picture on the Zoom was obscuring that. So let's go next. Okay, we'll try and move faster. Which of the following is not an example of concept searching? And we just talked about this. It's the searching for a book with the title or author's name, which is also called a title search or known item searching. Okay, so also called known item searching. Click next. Okay, which of the following is the term for a lie that is received as a truth? Disinformation is the correct answer. This is what we talked about on day 2 when we looked at the truth table. So we might have questions about the other ones later in the quiz. So anyway, information is true to both parties, the sender and the receiver. Misinformation is true to the sender, false to the receiver. It's usually unintentional and not malicious, whereas disinformation is. Non-information is false to both the sender and the receiver. So that's like humor and comedy, right? Okay, so keep going. And let's see, which of the following is considered a primary source? A birth certificate of Elvis Presley is typically a primary source. A biography, that's a secondhand source. Somebody else gathered information and wrote it up, right, about him. A book about Elvis Presley, very similar to a biography, right? Encyclopedia article could be a tertiary source because maybe they're looking at the books and the first-hand sources, right? So let's continue. I've got 2,000 points. Yay for me. Which of the following is not a secondary source? Okay, letters are not. I need to remember I can't do this with my computer. I have to do it with my phone. Okay, letters are primary sources. Another example of a primary source. Okay, I guess I'm on fire. Data as a goal means to use data to solve a problem or issue. So that's false, right? Data as a tool means that you use data to solve a problem or issue. Data as a goal means you just go and find out the information, you come back and you report. You give a summary, right? You're not using that information to solve a problem. You're just using it to give a summary, to regurgitate information. Okay, so verse 7, is a lie considered to be misinformation? No, disinformation is considered to be a lie. Propaganda is also considered to be disinformation. So lies and propaganda, disinformation. Okay. And what type of information is propaganda? So I just said that, disinformation. Misinformation, it could be an honest mistake. You tell a friend a concert starts on Friday at 5 p.m. They get there and they realize they learned that it doesn't start till 6. So I guess they have time to go out to eat. Or they have to be late to work. I don't know. The peer review doesn't guarantee blank. It does provide blank on the content, increasing credibility. This is kind of a tricky question, right? So does peer review guarantee currency? I think the correct answer is blue, accuracy and check, right? The peer review process doesn't guarantee accuracy. It does provide a check on the content, increasing credibility, right? Doesn't mean it's perfect. It just means multiple people have looked at it and hopefully they've done a good job giving feedback. Hopefully they didn't do that when they were exhausted and too tired to actually give valid feedback. So let's keep going. Question 10. What happens if we do not evaluate information? This was from like the first paragraph of chapter 4 of that assignment during the week of evaluating information. Increase the risk of using inaccurate information, make poor decisions, lose time. So I think all 3 of these answers, well, 3 of these answers are correct. So what happens if we do not evaluate information. We increase the risk of using inaccurate information. We could possibly make poor decisions based on poor information. We could also lose time, right? Because we might, if we might have to go back and redo something, or we might have to go back and search for information and so forth, right? 7,777 points. Yay for me. True or false? Data is recorded in primary sources while information is found in secondary sources. I think that's true. If you remember clear back, I think this was also on day 2, or maybe even day 1 of the semester. We talked about the differences between data and information. And we also talked about how in the disciplines, data is different, right? And I've kind of mentioned that a couple times in different ways today. But a historian, the data they collect could be facts and dates and places and names as they find those in primary sources, such as an original document, like the original Declaration of Independence, letters, certificates, like birth certificates, diaries, a diary could be a primary source. Whereas like a biologist, the data they gather is more like temperatures and, maybe quantities of, like stream flow in the river, or like the pH levels of water in the river, or I don't know, just different things. But secondary sources are the same across disciplines. All disciplines use articles and books and websites, and they probably even use email listservs and discussion boards to collaborate as researchers, right? Which information standard is applied when we use Boolean operators? So if you remember the 5 information literacy standards, correct answer is find the information. So we have 5 information literacy standards. The first one is to identify a need, right? Define your need. How much information do you need? What kind of information do you need? The second standard is to find the information. So using different strategies to do that. Can you find information effectively? Can you find the right information? That's the effective part. Can you find it efficiently? In other words, can you find it without wasting time? And then the third standard is evaluating the information and incorporating that information into your knowledge base. The fourth one is to use the information to get something done, to accomplish your task. And the fifth one is to understand the legal, economic, social, and other aspects related to the creation, use, and sharing of information. So those are some of the things involved, the 5 standards of information literacy. All right, let's click next again and identify the question type. What are the implications of nuclear technology? So is this a multi-part question that does not fly, open-ended question, a fuzzy question? So I think I would say this is an open-ended question. The problem with an open-ended research question is that it has too many answers, right? When you say what are the implications, there could be a million implications for nuclear technology. I mean, you're talking about implications related to the environment, implications related to warfare, implications related to employment, implications of the economy, such as like saving on electricity. Nuclear technology could save people money on their electric bill, right? It could provide more electricity for more people in a cheaper way than other electricity producing utilities, or I don't know, methods, right? Questions that do not fly, those are the ones that it's like, can you actually find data to solve the problem? Like if I ask a question about how many angels fit on the point of a pin, could you really answer that question with what we have available to us today? Probably not, right? So And then the multi-part question, the problem with that is that there are too many questions, right? You'd have to write a full book to answer all the questions. And so for college, we want you to narrow and focus so that you can answer the question with some depth, profundity, right, without being superficial in 6 to 10 pages, right? And the fuzzy question, those are the kinds of questions that it's like, what do you mean? Like, why was, let's see, why was Richard Nixon a terrible president, right? Well, what do you mean by terrible? Are you talking about his unethical behavior with the Watergate scandal? Or are you talking about his management of the Vietnam War? You know, what is it you're talking about? I mean, there could be other things too, the economy and I don't know, lots of things. I don't know Richard Nixon terribly well. So I'll go next. And we'll go to next one more time. We've got, we're almost done. 14 out of 16. Which searches will increase your precision or yield a higher percentage of relevant results? I think all of you should get that. Yeah, go with A and B, right? Even though it doesn't have A or B here, you can see that controlled vocabulary search and assigned subject search, those are searches that will give you a higher percentage of relevant results. So they're a higher precision, right? Maybe fewer results, but higher precision. So let's go to our 15th question. Almost done. Which will often increase your number of results in a search? The or operator, truncation, the and, the not. Okay, yeah. So we had that question already discussed in this review today with that survey. So we've discussed that already. Last question, hooray. Identify Boolean operators and codes. Oh, this was also in that survey. So you remember this already. It's the yellow one. Or, and, truncation codes, and proximity operators. Well, I hope you enjoyed the Kahoot. If I didn't share the audio, you can't hear the celebratory music and the applause. So yay, I'm on the top podium, hooray. Oh, and I'm also glad that I'm done with this Zoom thing, but now I guess I do the fun work of saving it to my computer and editing it and posting it to YouTube. So anyway, I hope this review was useful. I'll also be in library room, no, not library room, liberal arts room 270. That's our classroom tomorrow at 10:30. At 10:30, I'll be there to answer questions. I'll actually probably be there around 10 o'clock to set up the classroom with the numbers and the cards. So if you have any further questions, maybe you have questions that weren't answered that are on the study guide, you can also send those questions to me in an email, or you can post those to the week 8 forum for extra credit points. Anyway, thank you and have a good day and go Bengals, yay!